All right, the board is returning from a brief recess. We are now conducting committee interviews. We have a number of them this evening. First up, we have the Falmouth Retirement Board, Mr. Anderson.
Good evening, I'm Gary Anderson, Precinct 7. I have a brief statement, if I may.
Please.
Long time no see. I have been on hiatus now from serving on town committees for a little over a year, and I miss it, and I just want to get back into it. I looked at what some of the openings were, and I saw that there was an opening on the retirement board. I've had a conversation with Mr. Suso and Mr. Murphy, who is not here tonight. I have been retired for 12 years from the corporate world. My 25 years of work in the corporate world, actually 30 years, I guess, 25 of it have been spent in the employee benefits arena, pensions, investments. And so I feel I have a little bit of background. I have familiarity with pension plans. The board that exists currently is very knowledgeable and a lot of good experience, and I think I would benefit from them, and I think that they may benefit from a little bit of my background also, so I'm very interested in it. And I thank the board for considering my application.
And thank you for submitting it. Any questions from the board?
I can't imagine a more qualified candidate for this position. And I appreciate your willingness to come back after a brief hiatus.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I have to, first of all, thank you for the resume. Always appreciated, but I think in this case it might be a little bit of overkill because your reputation precedes you, and it is a very good one, Gary. It's good to have you back.
Thank you very much.
No, I really don't have a question because I think our knowledge of Gary over the years as Finance Committee Chairman, all of his comments and expertise at town meeting, I think you've been a very public person for quite a while. So I think we're fairly confident in your, and appreciate your interest in wanting to be on the retirement board. It's a good place for you, I think.
Thank you.
There's a lot of investment opportunities on the retirement board.
I just want to say thank you for having your application here, and it's and I agree with everyone else in the selectmen that we're very pleased that you've applied for this.
Thank you very much.
We have the one vacancy and the one applicant. How would the board like to proceed?
I move to appoint Gary Anderson to the open position on the Falmouth Retirement Board,
Term expiring.
which is the selectman's appointment to the retirement board.
Is it an indefinite term?
It's a definite term. Well, yeah.
I'm looking, oh, here we go. It is an indefinite term.
It's an indefinite term,
Interesting.
yeah.
Is that like an indenture?
It means you can't leave this time.
Means you can't leave.
All right, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? It's unanimous. Thank you and
Thank you very
congratulations.
much.
Thank you.
And next on the list, we have the Senior Center Site Feasibility Working Group. This is the at-large member that would represent the Board of Selectmen, Mr. Finneran.
Good evening, Mark Finneran, Precinct 6. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Any questions from the board?
I have two. I guess Mr. Anderson told us why he wanted to be on that committee. Could you tell us why you would like to be on this committee?
Yeah, it's a building project. We have a history of building projects. I think I have something I could add. And also, I was kind of curious as to why, when this was first presented, first off, that Mr. Vieira was the first one that was aware of a special town meeting. I mean, it was interesting. And then also, the presentation that Jennifer Petit gave regarding the sewage and water filtration projects. Also had the senior center intertwined within it, and they had already picked a price of $5 million. That seems to me rather expensive. I'm well aware that the senior citizen, of the condition of the senior citizen center. My mother's there a couple times a week, and her friends, my friends. I know they need to do something. Spending $5 million might be a little extreme. I think the first thing that you should do is investigate the Baptist Church in East Falmouth, where they built a new location on Route 151. I think that would be an ideal location. And to pick something that's already built, rather than to pay rate to have something constructed, could save the town millions of dollars that we don't have. And if we did pick a spot and did decide to build, there's also another spot behind Cappy's on the corner of Spring Briars Road and Worcester Court that's for sale. And we could also incorporate some of the Spring Briars Road land in it, which I think heretofore has been one of the less wise purchases the town has made. And if we could utilize some of that in it, if it was absolutely necessary to build, I think that's a good idea. But, I'm interested. $5 million seems like a lot of money. The seniors need a center, but I think the town should explore all its options, and I'd be willing to help.
My second question is, on your application, you express a relevant affiliation, work, and personal experiences as a big fan of town government. Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, I'm here all the time. Isn't that obvious?
Certainly
I'm
your
part
wording
of,
is not that you're a fan of town government. I just want to, I mean, I'm a little bit concerned about an application like this, that I actually read that as being a sarcastic statement on an application, and
sarcastic, like, how?
I have not heard you expressing that you are actually supportive of what the town has been doing in this
Don't I
town.
put as much work into this town as anybody?
Absolutely.
Who represents the taxpayers better than I do?
I think you do represent them very well, but I just wanted to, that's what I'm trying to find, is
I
understanding.
think, why, I mean, for someone to say that everything's hunky-dory in this town would be a little bit, hate to use the word again, but Pollyannish. So, I have lots of fans. They like the way I approach things. I think my approach doesn't hurt at all.
My question is, when you state that you're a big fan of town government,
I am.
I'm just-
Who shows up more than I do?
Gentlemen, I don't want to keep going back and forth.
okay, I'm just trying to understand the answer.
Understood. Any other questions? I think the obvious question that comes to mind, Mr. Finneran, is can you play well with others?
Oh, I've been asked that before. I mean, I'm here all the time, don't I? You know, aren't I? I mean, I never attacked anyone.
Understood. Have you been on, well, I shouldn't say have you, because I know you've been on, you were appointed to a prior committee. Other than the town manager selection committee, and of course we know the history of that, but were there any other committees that you've participated in, or any other?
Oh, I've applied for several, but no one ever saw fit to put me on it, but it doesn't really matter if I had interest. I participated anyway.
So you showed
Demonstrated
up-
with the solid waste issue and the wastewater issue. I mean, again, who put in more time in those things than I did? Well, there were others, but, you know.
So you've shown, and I apologize, because I don't go to all of these meetings all the time, so, but you're saying that you've shown up to these meetings and actually participated in?
The
for example-
wastewater meetings
Yes.
especially.
Okay.
I didn't miss a one for years.
Okay.
And I had a lot of input, and I think that myself and several others changed the whole direction of the wastewater issue, in the direction that the committee was headed in. Yeah, I participated. Absolutely. It's my town. It's going bankrupt. I want to help.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? All right, thank you very much.
Certainly. Thank you.
We have the one vacancy. And Mr. Finner is the only applicant. How do we want to proceed? Well, I'll make a motion to appoint Mr. Finner. Anyone want to second it for discussion at least?
Second it?
I understand that there may be reservations by members of the board regarding Mr. Finneran's abrasiveness, and I use that word because he himself has used it, and I think he understands that sometimes he can be, but to his credit, he was appointed to the Town Manager Selection Committee, and in fact, the difficulties that that committee had and the ultimate breakup of that committee, Mr. Finneran was not actually involved in it. It was other members of the committee. And I think, to his credit, Mr. Finneran has shown up to a number of town meetings, not just town meeting itself, but meetings here, town committees, and has been an active and I think a positive contributor. We may not like his approach sometimes and may not appreciate his demeanor, but I do think that he can make a positive contribution. Any other discussion? Thoughts? All right, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Any opposition?
No.
All right. The board is tied 2-2, and the motion does not carry. So we have a vacancy, and we'll advertise the vacancy again.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I think we should just pause for a moment and take a look at what this group needs to do. And that is, they have an article on the Springtown meeting for the funding of a feasibility study. And if they don't do this work in terms of looking at sites and at least coming up with some sort of a plan regarding to that, then it's not going to be very helpful to them at town meeting. And I know the original plan, I think, that they asked for was the selectmen to work with them during the course of this, and because we batted that back and forth and ended up deciding that maybe we should just have a selectman's representative, and we advertise. I don't think it's fair to them to delay this again, because that'll take another month. By the time it's advertised, when they come back, will be March before we interview again. So in order to move it along, I was going to suggest maybe that one of the selectmen would like to actually take that place for that short period of time that working group wants to do that. I looked to see who was the liaison to the Council on Aging, and it's the old list, and that was David Braga. So we really don't have anyone specifically now appointed as a liaison. But if no one else on the board was interested in doing it, I would volunteer my services to work on that with that group for the next few weeks until they can finish that work prior to town meeting, unless somebody else wants to do it. I just want to see them get going and get it done.
I agree with the motivation of getting going. I don't see how we can have someone, I mean, certainly you could go to the meetings, but I don't see how you could be disappointed. I disagree with Mr. Finner on a number of issues. I can't disagree with his desire, passion to be helped, to work for the good of the town. And if this committee can convince him of some good sites, it is going to be able to be more successful in convincing the town meeting in general, and that they can move forward to get this stuff done in time.
So what are you suggesting?
I would really encourage us to reconsider the vote and move forward so that the committee can get its work done. We only had one applicant for it. In the meetings I've talked to Mr. Finner one-on-one, he can be convinced and can work well. I don't always agree with the way he does things at the town meeting, but I think in a smaller committee, I think that he could be helpful in asking some harder questions that need to be answered to proceed with some good sites. And the charge of the committee is to do a site feasibility and to check out reasonable sites that we've already done the assessment. We've already paid for the assessment, that we need a senior center. We just need this committee to figure out what are the best sites for it. And I think with that limited charge, I think he could be helpful.
Well, I'll ask Ms. Flynn.
I'm not
Ms.
willing to
Moffett.
reconsider. I mean, I don't see any point in reconsidering the vote. I just like to see, maybe we don't appoint anybody and let them just go forward with the group they have
They
and
do
get it
have a
done.
quorum, so they can
They can
meet
get it
without-
done. I would suggest that they do
I
that.
think I would agree with that. Just let them go ahead with the group that they have now, do their feasibility study, and
And then
and
but
at
take it
least
to
get
town
started.
meeting.
And if they have a quorum, then that's all that is necessary for right now.
And certainly I encourage, Pat, if you want to go to the
Well,
meetings, it's an open
No,
meeting.
I just want to move I just want to move it along
Yeah.
because we've delayed them now since early November and we're now into February. And I think they need to get their work done. So whatever works. So maybe let them go forward and do it on their own and get it done. I see a thumbs up back there, so then we don't have to vote on anything. We can just
Well, there's-
drop a selectman's representative
Okay.
completely.
No, that would require us to vote a change to the charter of the committee, because we did vote to make to actually ask and advertise for an individual to represent the Board of Selectmen. So we'll advertise the position, and hopefully in 2 weeks, we'll have additional applicants, or we'll cast another vote at that time when there's all 5 members of the board here, so.
I would not support a motion to re-advertise.
I think they should
it's
just
not
go
a-
with the way they have it right now.
Folks,
It's
it's
a
not
motion.
a motion to re-advertise. It's an open position on a committee that we voted to compose in this fashion. And as long as that position remains open, unless we have a vote to change the composition of the committee, it's going to continue to be advertised, and it will be before us again to have interviews and be filled. We can't just say, for example, that we don't want to fill a position on the Council on Aging just because it's vacant.
This is a working group. This isn't any formal committee.
I don't want to go down that road again. We made a
Right.
decision as to the composition of the committee. We've advertised for the position. If we're not going to fill it tonight, we'll advertise again, and we'll have additional interviews if we have additional applicants.
Then how do you suggest the committee gets their work done over the next month while
Well,
they're waiting for someone?
As noted, they have a quorum, and they can certainly begin their work. There's nothing wrong or illegal about that. It's simply that just as there are other committees, they have a vacancy.
So in other words, we suggest to them, they get going, they get started, they get working on it, and if we come up with someone in a month from now or 6 weeks from now, you can add that person to your group, but you'll get the work done. I'm
Okay.
okay with that.
All right. And with that, the next item on our agenda with these committee interviews, we have the Affirmative Action Committee. Mr. Hall.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hope we can fill this one. I'm just kidding.
Would you like to tell us a little bit about why you'd like to be on the Affirmative Action Committee?
I think that the issues of affirmative action, as they've evolved, and I'll say that they've evolved from just strictly racial issue and employment issues and things of that nature. During the time that I was on the committee, and George Spivey was the affirmative equity officer at the time, we had some, when there was a lack of real different important issues, we took the time, got a couple of grants, and we did some very interesting things, which I would say were affirmative. One of them was is that we got a grant. We got a grant for the handicap accessible playground at the T-Ticket School. We've done some things in the more rundown neighborhoods in the East Falmouth, where we got we worked with the town and got the neighborhoods, the landlords that weren't taking care of the properties that they had. And we got the town to help us take all the empty refrigerators, all of the trash, the garbage, the things that have been laying there for years. We've got that taken care of. When we saw a problem or an issue, I grew up in Falmouth, so back in the day, we used to have public programs at the schools, and they were free and open to the public. We found during our tenure that there were kids that were excluded from those programs because they didn't have the money for them. We found a way to once again make those open and free to just everybody, all the residents that were there. So when we speak of affirmative action, I think there's different things that we can do. Of course, there's the very important issues. We dealt with some of the issues that were going on with the police department at that time and other things, and that's you know, it's expanded. I mean, we redid the charter. Well, Andrew was the chair. We looked at some things, and it's broadened out. So there may be, you know, potentially other issues that we weren't. But it's the passion for that type of thing that I like to be involved with, and think that once again that I can make some kind of difference or at least assist in that area.
Questions from the board?
What steps do you think we could take to get more people to apply to this committee? I noticed that we have 3 openings.
You know, I think that there is the little stigma about what affirmative action is and people's views and things like that. I do think that you would have to be creative, but you also have to address some tough things. People and personnel issues, attitudes and things aren't easily swayed. So with the charge that the committee has, and we're here to try to assist the board in some of these things that you guys have to deal with, to keep them from escalating to certain, legal points and things like that. But I think the passion has to come from within. I think that what we can do to get more people, I really don't know. I really think that you have to want to do this. This isn't a faint of heart type of volunteer position that you apply for. You really have to think that I like to think that there's nothing wrong, but I'd like to think that if there was something wrong, we have somebody that's level-handed and passionate about what they're looking at and what they're doing to find the best result for the town and for the people involved, actually.
Anyone else?
Yeah. Where do you think the connection would be between the Affirmative Action Committee here and the Human Rights Commission on the Cape? Are you familiar with the Human Rights Commission?
No, when my tenure was up here, I kind of got out of everything. It was kind of a nice little break, but no, I can't draw anything from you right now.
Because there is a very active Human Rights Commission. In fact, I happen to be someone who met with them today, and they have a very interesting plan now going forward, and that's based on whether or not any type of immigration reform passes in the Congress. And they've come together to develop a real educational plan for the immigrants who need to become documented. And I thought, is that something that affirmative action might be interested in participating in? Do you think, is that something that you see as an activity that the Affirmative Action Committee might be engaged in?
Well, I think we could be probably friends of something like that, or an initiative like that. I don't see why not. Like I say, without having a lot of background and anything to speak about it on, I would say that yes, but there are also, it's a wide range of things that you could get into. And I would still like to just focus here.
Here, and locally,
in Falmouth and the people that are here. So, but I would not outrule that as something that the committee would look at.
Okay. Thanks.
Any further questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
We have several vacancies, I believe. If I can find
I would move
several
approval of the appointment of Lionel Hall to the Affirmative Action Committee
Second.
to an unexpired term ending, I guess, June 30th, 2016.
Second.
Okay, motion and second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Unanimous. Thank you and congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, and moving down the list, we have an application for the Council on Aging. Susan Gallagher?
Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Susan Gallagher from Precinct 2, applying for the Council on Aging.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and why you'd like to be a member of the committee.
Sure. I've been a year-round Falmouth resident and taxpayer for approximately 7 years, but prior to that I had an affiliation with the town for over 30 years as a seasonal resident. I'm a nurse practitioner by training. I've been employed in that field for about 25 years, most recently for the past 6 years here in Falmouth, Hospital. So I feel like I have a perspective on elders in the community in terms of their health and wellness needs and transitioning back to the community. I live with an elder, my mom, who participates in activities at the senior center, and I'm fast approaching that age category myself, so I have a personal stake in what's going on in the town. I've been involved in the needs assessment last spring regarding the senior center, and had the opportunity to hear about the findings from that assessment. and have spoken with Jill Irving Bishop and have a sense of what's going on in the town in terms of the Council on Aging. I think it's a pivotal time for the council in terms of the plans to pursue a site, enlarge the center, and offer a wider spectrum of services to seniors. So I think I'd like to be involved in that. I've been looking for an opportunity to get involved in the town, and I think I have the time and energy right now to devote to it. So.
Okay. Questions from the board?
Well, after I read your application, I think it's a perfect match. I just think that your background, and I think you just gave us a little bit more when you said that you're taking care of your mom. There is, you need that experience. And as you were saying that in what I was reading and the people that have endorsed you on your application is, I'm very pleased you have applied.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I had my questions answered.
Okay. Thank you. Well, we have the vacancy, we have the one applicant this evening. How do we want to proceed?
Just was unclear on the date as to when that expired.
It is incomplete, isn't it? That's a very good question.
Maybe Jill would know. When-
15? So it would be an unexpired term, June 30th, 2015. Thank you.
I would move approval of the appointment of Susan Gallagher as the Council on Aging to an unexpired term ending June 30th, 2015.
Second?
We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? It's unanimous. Thank you and congratulations. And next on the list, we have the Zoning Board of Appeals. There's an alternate opening, Kimberly Beelan. Did I pronounce that correctly?
You did, yes.
Good. I'm not always good with names, so.
Good evening, I'm Kimberly Beelan. I'll tell you a little bit about myself and tell you why I'm interested. I'm an attorney, I'm a second-year attorney. I work at a firm in Braintree, where I primarily am fortunate to do some zoning-related work. I'm in the litigation and real estate departments. We represent both homeowners, developers, so pretty definitely unbiased view. I'm also just a land use geek, and I love it, and I'm passionate about it, and I can definitely bring some energy to it. And I also know all of the work that attorneys and applicants put into the applications, and I know how frustrating it can be as a member, as an applicant, to not have somebody who's prepared and who's read and who cares about what's before them. So I would definitely be prepared and be interested and be very happy. I know that this is a short term, but hopefully it can kind of show what I can do and what I can give to the board and the town, and hopefully move forward from there.
Thank you. Questions from the board?
Just to clarify, and most of your work is in Braintree, so the idea that you would be in conflict with any of your land cases is minimal or non-existent.
Right, exactly. And I also just would like to say that my firm is very happy that I'm doing this and trying for this, so they know that I might have to leave early some days, and my firm's on board as well. So time conflict won't be an issue.
Okay.
I'm thrilled that we're able to keep someone living in East Falmouth even if they're working in Braintree.
Yes.
So how do you expect life on the other side will be? I mean, you're used to representing clients, I'm assuming, at zoning boards, so now you will really be representing the town, if you will, in terms of its zoning bylaws. How will that be?
I mean, there wouldn't be an advocacy position.
No, I realize that, yeah.
I think I'm still new enough to it to say, my interest is Falmouth. I'm pro-Falmouth, so what the law is, the law is. And I can come to that and view that very clearly. I think the fact that, I have experience in this area, I have a broader understanding, I think, of the law, bringing experience to it. I'm in the Real Estate Bar Association, so I am attending land use and zoning committees, so I'm looking at the issues comprehensively. So I don't bring any bias. And I think having people come in, I can understand both sides, and I think it's a benefit to the board.
A follow-up, what is it about land use that gives you this great passion?
I have no idea. I took a course at law school, and it just clicked for me. I think it's kind of saying, what did these people do 50 years ago, and how does this work under the law now? And a lot of zoning is going back in time, seeing how these properties developed. We're fortunate to be on the Cape because there's a lot of land use issues, so I just clicks for me, so.
Good, okay.
I want to compliment you on your application.
Thank
It's
you.
very extensive. It tells a lot about you. You have quite a background as far as your education is concerned, and you have a lot of experience. So I was very pleased in reading and knowing that someone that had all of this background was applying for to be a volunteer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for the resume. Those are always appreciated. And yeah, your enthusiasm is definitely coming through. It's good to see.
And one other comment, I think it's very good to know that your employer is okay with this, and it has encouraged you along these lines, so it's good.
Thank you.
Okay, we have the one vacancy for the alternate. Thank you. And the one applicant. How would we like to proceed?
And as Kimberly mentioned, this is a term ending June 30th, 2014, so it is just a short term, but I would move that we approve the appointment of Kimberly Beelan to the Zoning Board of Appeals as an alternate, term ending June 30th, 2014.
We have a
Second.
motion, we have a second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? It's unanimous. Thank you and congratulations.
And hope that if you really like it, you'll reapply in July. Okay.
Thank you.
Next on the list, Bikeways Committee, Thomas Harvey.
Good evening, Thomas Harvey, Precinct 6, for your consideration.
So tell us a little bit about why you'd like to be on the Bikeways Committee. Are you a biker yourself, I imagine, or?
Yes, absolutely. I was born and raised in Falmouth. When I graduated, got out of Dodge. I've since returned. While I've been away, specifically lived in one city where they've implemented a great bike plan. Large metropolitan city. It works. It advocates both recreation and transportation. For me, I'm most interested in it as a transportation mode. I view it as an environmental issue. For me, the biggest thing we can do is get cars off the road more often, in which case commuting either to work, school, play is the most viable way to do that. Additionally, here in Falmouth, the Shining Seas Bikeway is a total jewel. In my opinion, it's really one of the smartest things this town has ever done. So I would encourage it to remain. I would like to make sure that it is funded properly and that it's been let known to both citizens and visitors that it's open for use, and to encourage more use of it for transportation.
Okay. Questions from the board?
I thought it was an interesting sentence when you said, all I heard was you wanted to get the cars off the road.
Yes.
So your point is that as we have tourists and a lot of people coming into Falmouth, it is a very, very busy place with a lot of cars in the summertime. But then we also
Absolutely.
have a lot of bicycle riders who, want to go on our different roads. And there is a conflict there.
There's an enormous conflict, and just by virtue of us all being here right now as citizens of the U.S., we probably all drove here today. I drove here. I would choose not to. However, currently, from my house to here, I don't feel it's a very safe ride at 9 o'clock on a February night. Not to say that I wouldn't do it, because it's not that far. So, as a member of the committee, I would like to help ensure that we can expand on the network that is already present, just to make it more safe, more clear. The clearer the system is for motorists as well as cyclists, it creates less conflict, which is extremely important because it only takes one accident. So, in addition to, how should I put it politely? we need to drive less, and this is an engine to get people to do that less. The Bikeways Committee, both through outreach and in terms of expanding the network.
And in saying that, you're taking into consideration the age of many of our residents in Falmouth.
Yes, and many people of age ride their bike recreationally.
Well, let's think about that. Let's think about the age that is over 60 years old.
Yes,
Okay.
they do it recreationally. However, they want just a safe ride as well. And in addition, it's beyond just the people of age riding recreationally. It's maybe the person that would prefer to ride the 3 miles to work or the 2 miles to school. We'd be better served as a town if it was a nice, smooth network for that.
What is the commute that you bike? Because from East Falmouth, there are not lots of places that are easy to bike.
I'm sorry?
What is, you say you're a bike commuter
Yes.
in Falmouth. What's the route that you typically do? Because one of the things I think you could be easily frustrated with is from East Falmouth, it's one of the places that doesn't have great bike routes.
And I feel like I'm fortunate from where I live. It is a relatively good commute. I live down by the high school on
Okay.
Locust Field, the straightaway part.
Right.
So it's first getting through the intersection, which is hairy because all intersections are hairy. But then after that, it's down, I believe it's Gifford or Palmer,
Different.
over, in this case, just all the way down to Catherine Lee, take a right. That's pretty manageable because, for one, that's an exceptionally wide road. And two, if you ever do get worried on that, you take the sidewalk, which is always, as you mentioned earlier, many sidewalks in this town. That's a very viable option if you ever feel safe or if the network isn't adequate at the time. You can take that as well. Additionally, I work in Woods Hole and I commute down there, and that's where the bike path is brilliant because it's just from Palmer Avenue. It's just a quick cut over, and that's a super highway of a bike path, really. And it's good that that has finally been created, but it's important that we can somehow expand on it as well.
Right, but from where you live west, the bike path works pretty well. From where you live east,
It
we
does
really
not
don't
work very
have
well.
great
Absolutely,
solutions
and
for
that's
bike
where, as an advocate, I would want to ensure that there are ways to expand it eastward as well. Because the fact that there's very few really, east to west connectors that are pretty viable. There's one main north-south, but it's on one side of the town. So it's important to me to make sure that we can expand the viability eastward as well.
Other questions?
I do. Have you attended any meetings of the Bikeways Committee yet?
I have not.
Oh, you have not, okay. I just wondered, because you've talked about some things that really are going to require some education. I think education of citizens would be very helpful and valuable for those who maybe could ride a bike or maybe want to ride a bike, but they don't know enough about what's available in the town or how safe it might be or what the best roads are, something like that. And I thought I wondered if maybe you thought you could advocate for something like that if you were on the Bikeways Committee.
Oh, absolutely, and that's part of advocating as a means of transportation. It's someone say, oh, well, I'd love to, you talk to someone on the street, oh, I'd love to do that. Oh, well, here's the route that you need to take, or here's what you want to be careful for, here's what you need to avoid. Here's, direct them towards a resource that, say the Bikeways path and the maps. Oh, take a look, this is the best route you want to take.
My other question is, have you ever been on any other committees before? Not necessarily in the town, but anywhere in terms of your education, or?
I have not.
You have not. So this would be the first time you'd be on a committee?
Yes, ma'am.
So in anticipation of that, what do you expect some of your responsibilities might be as a member of a committee in terms of working with the others, listening to what they have to say? If someone disagrees with you, how might you handle that? Could you talk a little bit about that?
I would expect a lot of the responsibilities to be, like you mentioned, is outreach to the citizens. My impression is that there's not a large amount of projects we could jumpstart because of funding and issues like that. So in this instance, it's certainly outreach, telling people how to get from Wacoit to Woods Hole, or how to safely navigate a certain intersection. As far as folks that disagree, that clearly in my first meeting, that's part of the process, and that's a healthy part, and that's dialogue that is needed. If it's just one-sided opinions, then it doesn't become fair for the entire town.
Now, I'm also going to ask you, as a member of a committee, if you find that others disagree with you, how would you handle that? If you really believed in your own position and 2 or 3 members of the committee didn't agree with you, how would you handle that disagreement?
I would hope with open dialogue. If it's something where it is a matter of decisions being made, and my count, my vote is less than others, well, so be it, because that's how these committees are established in order to create consensus. You know, in that light, there's not much you can do except try to, you know, next point, try to bring a stronger argument.
Okay. How to persuade others to your point of view, something like that.
Yeah,
That's what I
absolutely.
try to do, and that doesn't always work. But you're right, you've got the right idea. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right, we have the one unexpired term and the one applicant. How do we want to proceed?
I would like to move that we appoint Mr. Harvey, Thomas Harvey, to the Bikeways Committee to a term ending June 30th, 2016.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Unanimous. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And the last, yeah, Historical Commission. The last one this evening is Mr. Malcolm Donald, Historical Commission.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Oh, yeah. Keep around my David Nimrod hat. Yes, Malcolm Donald from Precinct 6. Yeah, although my last name is Donald, my family goes back to Jonathan Hatch. And my great-grandfather, Arthur Underwood, was selectman back in the 20s and 30s. And I grew up listening to historical oral histories from my grandparents and uncles and aunts, and ever since I was knee-high to a grasshopper. And I've always been very interested in it. And I continue, today I own my grandparents' home along with my sister, and that is a 18th century home that was jacked up in the 19th century with a first floor Victorian put underneath it. And we've maintained it as best we could to preserve its historical character. Additionally, on the property is a barn that was built from the salt works at the end of Shore Street. And I know this because of the stories that, that it's from my family. We've got some of the rollers that they used to wheel the covers onto the salt works. And I've been coming down to Falmouth ever since my birth to visit my family, and I moved here permanently in early 80s, and I've always considered Falmouth my home. I have a Bachelor's of Science in Mechanical Engineering from Union College, although I spent most of my professional career in computers. This past year, planning in Falmouth started for the bicentennial of Falmouth's involvement in the War of 1812. And I pulled the trigger on the Save the Nimrod organization, and we were able to channel public outrage, and to the point at which we got the developer of the Nimrod to Warren Dalton to come around to say, instead of just saving the small Bourne house, which actually took the cannonball, to actually save the Lewis house as well. And the Lewis house is the main building of the Nimrod that you went in and had the bar and the restaurant. And we've been very encouraged. Mr. Dalton has told us that he envisions public access to the Nimrod in the form of a cafe or something that would allow people to have access to the older front parts of those two buildings. So it's been a very encouraging experience, and his plans are expected to surface later this month, and we look forward to seeing how he's going to incorporate the old with the new. Recently, as you all know, the historic preservation plan is underway that the Falmouth Historical Commission has moved forward the hiring of historic
Preservation?
Preservation strategies to come and, develop a plan for Falmouth, and this is just terrific. I've attended several of the meetings, and I've been very impressed with Peter Benton's outlook on, what he's seen and some of the recommendations he's made as far as what Falmouth could do to help preserve its historic past. I have to agree that it looks like I'd like to agree that a historic preservation group of some kind, a private organization similar to the 300 Committee, is necessary to save historic properties at risk through purchase or preservation easement. The demo bylaw needs some strengthening. We need to have greater public awareness on how important the historic aspects of Falmouth are. Contrary to public opinion, people just don't come to Falmouth for the restaurants and beaches. They come for the historic character of the town. And if that goes, then we've all lost a great deal. I've been encouraged with your board's desire to extend Main Street. I and many others can see that the Lawrence House, AKA the Zielinski House in T-Ticket, would make a nice bookend for furthering Main Street down into T-Ticket. The Davis House in Falmouth, Davis House in Davis Straits would also make an addition to that. And of course, the Elmarch Inn off Main Street is also a concern to many of us. And at this point, I'd like to also just give a shout out to the owner of the building just east of the Falmouth Hotel, who has recently resided the front and made the place really great. And he's the fellow who's lit up those two magnificent trees with those million white lights over Christmas, and it's really helped things look a lot nicer, and I think he should be really commended for it, and I'm sorry I don't know his name. Yes, the late Mary Lou Smith, editor of the Book of Falmouth and Falmouth's Grand Dam of Historic Preservation, who fought successfully to save Highfield Hall and the Mullen Hall School, wrote to the Enterprise in 1985. There comes a point when people who care about his village say, enough. We must preserve what we have left of the past and protect it against the greed and lack of taste in the future. I think her comments sum up pretty much my position on Falmouth's historic assets. Now, before you can ask, I'll tell you what I think I can bring to the Falmouth Historical Commission. I can bring an understanding of Falmouth history, an appreciation for Falmouth's historic assets, an understanding of the issues involved in historical preservation, historical renovation, the ability to raise public awareness, and ability to work collaboratively with others.
Questions from the board?
I have a question as to how you would handle the Historical Commission voting contrary to your choice.
Well, I guess I would answer, how do you handle voting on the select board? I mean, hey, a vote's a vote. You know, you lobby, you cajole, but you know, when the score's taken, that's it. You know? And if that lady sings, well, you can still advocate for your position. You can still maintain your position. You need to respect your other members of the board. Respect their point of view. But the way our democracy is set up, it's the majority rules. So.
I mean, it's a little bit different for us because we actually are sort of charged to act as a board, and if the board votes one way, we are then charged to represent that is the decision of the board.
Right.
No longer to continue to push for our personal desires. And I'm just wondering, if the board votes differently than you want, are you going to be able to be okay with saying, okay, well, that was the board decision?
Well, I mean, that's what's board. You know, I would hope that you would be pushing more than for your personal desires as a board of selectmen. As a selectman, I would hope that you would be pushing for the the desires of the people you represent.
Any other questions?
Yeah. What excites you about being a member of the Historical Commission?
What excites me?
Yeah.
The opportunity to get things, to make changes. And if we don't make some changes here, you know, the historical, you know, we can fold up our tent and go home. I mean, we've got to save these, save the assets that we have while they're still here, because once they're gone, they're gone.
I know that the commission has been really looking at having this preservationist work with them in identifying or re-identifying what the historical assets of the town are and how they might preserve them. Is that something that you understand that they're working on and how they might be able to accomplish it?
Well, what I understand is they're going to come up with a plan for how the town should approach this. And they're going to come to you, eventually going to come to you with this policy statement that they hope that you will, well, I guess they're going to present to you for your discussion and changes and modifications in the expectation that you're going to take this as this is going to be the way we're going forward here in town. And they're not, from my understanding, they're not going to be working on specific properties or anything like that, but just to have the plan in place as to how to put the rules and concepts into order.
And that's okay with what you would like to do as a member of the commission?
Yeah, I mean, we need a plan. Oh my gosh, we need a plan, yeah.
And obviously, your family history here in Falmouth, just with your knowledge of the history of Falmouth, I would think would be valuable to the commission. Do they see it that way? Have you talked to them about it, about your being a member?
No, I guess I haven't had that discussion with them.
You haven't had that discussion, okay.
Just on a piece of correspondence, we have heard from Nancy Hayward.
Yes.
Who did ask to express her support for the application.
Any other questions? I have a question myself. Have you ever served on a jury before?
Yes, I did, a couple of them,
A couple?
yeah.
All the way through, like, the trial
Yeah, yeah,
to a
yeah.
decision?
Yeah, I was on a rape case, and it was pretty disgusting. And the fellow was exonerated. But the whole thing was, I mean, it wasn't, he was, the woman was, should have been thrown in jail, the whole kit and caboodle.
Well, we don't need to know the details of it.
Anyway, yes.
But I asked the question.
Yeah.
Because you do understand, as a member of the Historical Commission, that it has a quasi-judicial role
Correct.
in that it does issue permits, demolition permits, for
Right.
example. So
Right.
being on a jury it's the closest analogy that I've come up with for folks who have not yet served on, say, the ZBA or the Conservation Commission or the Historical Commission, where you have to come up with a decision based on the facts.
Right.
And that decision has legal implications to it. So I just want to make sure you understand that it's not just a matter of and there can be some fun stuff on the Historical Commission, without a doubt. There was some fun things that we did with land preservation and whatnot when I was on the Conservation Commission, but a lot of it can be this quasi-judicial role where you have to come to a decision, which leads me to my next question. And there was sort of alluded to, I think, with some of the earlier questions, but obviously you're an advocate for the preservation of historic structures, but what happens if you're faced with a structure that, for whatever reason, is too far gone, and somebody comes before you, asks for the demolition permit? Are you willing to pull the trigger and say, yeah, go ahead, take it down?
Well, I mean, if it can't, I mean, if that's the choice, then what else, I guess what else can you do? But I guess I'd just like to say, I'm against demolition by neglect. And I see that as a very insidious way of getting rid of our historic assets.
A point taken. Any other questions? All right, thank you very much. We have the one unexpired term and the one applicant. How do we want to proceed? This is would be for a term expiring June 30, 2016.
I would move approval of Mr. Malcolm Donald to the Historical Commission, term ending June 30th, 2016.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second to appoint Mr. Donald to Historical Commission, excuse me. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposition?
Yes.
One opposed. By a vote of 3-1, the motion carries. Mr. Donald, thank you and congratulations. And we did have one other interview for the Human Services Committee, but that will be rescheduled. The applicant was unable to attend this evening. And so, next on the agenda, we have a shellfish aquaculture license approval. Daniel Ward, Ward Aqua Farms. Mr. Ward is unable to attend this evening. I do have in my notes, pull it out here, that the board may approve the license. We do have the approval letter from the Department of Marine Fisheries. And if there are no questions, then we can approve it this evening. Otherwise, we could continue this if the board so chose.
No, I've reviewed the letter from Marine Fisheries, and I think they're satisfied with this application, and I don't see any reason why we cannot approve it tonight. It's pretty straightforward at this point.
Any other questions or comments?
Just that as opposed to the past applications, which were the first step, this is kind
Here's
of
the last step, right.
This is in Megansett Harbor.
So I would move approval of the shellfish agricultural license for Daniel Ward at Ward Aqua Farms.
So we have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
Not as much as discussion as just to point out that this is the application for an agricultural license on the 2 floating upwellers at Fiddler's Cove Marina. This is not the applications for the ones that are taking up acres of space in Megansett Harbor, but I think this is taking up a 30-foot by 30-foot site.
Situated in a corner of the marina between 2 finger piers that are perpendicular to each other, boxing in the upwellers, according to the letter. All right. Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Unanimous. All right. That brings us to a review of the board's policies and procedures. You all should have received an email, or several emails actually, with the board's existing policies. This is more or less a placeholder and the beginning of a discussion. I don't anticipate that we're all going to start delving into the policies, but 3 years ago the board did a rather comprehensive review of our policies. We broke up the policy manual into 5 pieces. Each member of the board reviewed their section, and there was some policies that were retired, some that were modified. We've obviously added policies as well, but I just want to put it on our radar that in the coming weeks and months, we'll probably have a few agenda items to look at some of the policies. There are some things that do need to be adjusted. Most notable is that, interestingly enough, the alcohol regulations are actually part of the policy manual, so that may be something that we need to discuss, having that placed in a separate location as opposed to within our policies. Procedures are another thing that I'd like the board to, we'll have a more comprehensive discussion about that. We've been using a draft set of hearing procedures over the last few months, and we should probably make that official so that going forward there is an established process to that procedure as well as others that the board has worked on, including, for example, the public, the policy of having a public open comment time during the board's agenda. So there's a few things there that we need to update, finalize, put our rubber stamp on, if you will. So just a heads up on that, and you all now have copies of the existing policies, so please take some time in the next few weeks, look over them. If there's any glaring omissions or changes, then we can start bringing those up for modification. Oh, excellent. And you know what, I'm going to take off the table the application for the new all-alcoholic common victualler license for Falmouth Woods LLC. And we do have an email here from Brian Reed advising the Board of Selectmen that he has reviewed the application and the Police Department has no problem with the approval of the application.
I move approval of the application for the new all-alcoholic common victual license and entertainment license for New Falmouth Woods LLC.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? And we did take public comment on that earlier this evening.
Actually, I guess I need to move that we close the hearing first.
Yes,
You're
that's
absolutely
probably
right.
right.
So if you could take the motion off the table, thank you
Move
for.
my first motion and make a secondary motion that we close the hearing on the new all-alcoholic common victual license.
Okay.
Second.
So a motion and a second to close the hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? It's unanimous. Okay, do we have a motion then for approval?
I will now move approval of the new all-alcoholic common victual license and entertainment license.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the licenses. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? All right. And thank you, Mr. Jones, for remembering the process that I forgot.
If someone could let him know tomorrow that he has a license, or at least it's in the works.
All right.
In our packet, we had this annual license renewal, but we don't have that on our agenda, so I don't.
We do, actually. There's, on the agenda that I have here, there's an annual license renewal, but
Great.
that is after
Okay.
the town manager evaluation and discussion of goals. And again, this is something that we can begin this evening and finish in a coming week, if necessary. Just for the board's edification, and so the public has a little bit of understanding, there are some things that I handed out to everyone earlier this evening. You should all have it in front of you. And the first that I would bring your attention to is an email, or are some emails, excuse me, from Frank Duffy, which outlined the limitations of the open meeting law and what can and cannot be discussed in public session. This evening, Mr. Jones and I sat down with Mr. Suso before the meeting to look at a compiled document. As you all know, each of you put together an individual review for Mr. Suso that was presented to me. I compiled that and averaged the ratings that were presented. And that document is here, and according to Mr. Duffy, and with Mr. Suso's consent, this is a public document that can be discussed in public session. And so, it is in your hands to have a copy. There's no need for us to try to read through it this evening. But for everyone's edification, all the comments were compiled. There is no indication as to which comments came from which member of the board. That was one of the requirements as identified by Mr. Duffy. And, of course, the individual ratings that we gave Mr. Suso were averaged. Looking for it. It was a stapled document,
Stapled.
and I put it face down, so it may be underneath.
Go back to the beginning.
I may have an extra copy if you want to.
Stapled. Wait a minute, maybe it's under here. Here it is.
Oh, you do have, okay.
Yeah, here it is. I got it.
For the ratings, what I did, there were 3 potential ratings that were given to Mr. Suso for each category. There was needs improvement, meets expectations, or exceeds expectations. The board was asked to rate each category under the 2 significant sections, the performance standards and the core responsibilities. What I did was I assigned a number 1 to needs improvement, a number 2 to meets expectations, and a number 3 to exceeds expectations, and then I was able to average those numbers. For the performance standards, Mr. Suso earned a 2.7 out of a possible 3, and for the core responsibilities, Mr. Suso earned a 2.6 out of a possible 3. The other documents I'd like to draw your attention to at this time, there is a double-sided sheet that included some of the suggested goals that the board came up with, as well as on the backside there were goals that Mr. Suso suggested as possibilities. And then finally there's a draft process that I put together that outlines the steps taken to bring us to where we are today. And I'd just like to draw your attention to that because at this point we're at number 6, where we are provided with Mr. Suso's ratings, and items 7 and 8, which include discussing the prior year goals and setting goals for the coming year, and item number 8 is where we may discuss changes to Mr. Suso's remuneration commensurate with his performance. We may want to hold on those just to do those at the next meeting when Mr. Murphy is here, and also to give the board some time to consider the documents that you have in front of you. So I know it's a lot, which is why I say this is something that we may carry over into the next meeting, because obviously you've just gotten these documents, and I want to make sure you have time to digest them before we go any further with it. But if you have any questions at this time, let me know. Otherwise, we'll probably have this as an agenda item in 2 weeks so that we can finalize this.
In 2 weeks. So we are meeting in February in 2 weeks, or is that, I looked at the calendar.
The
and it didn't-
24th, yes.
Oh, we are meeting the 24th.
Yes.
Oh,
Next week is a holiday and the beginning of
Following
the school vacation, so we're not meeting next week.
okay. Wow, school vacation. So we'll be taking up the discussion of the evaluation, the goals, and the performance, and the compensation
Yes.
at that time.
Any questions or comments? All right. So the next item on our agenda, we have an annual license renewal. This is a license renewal, so there's only one here. This is a common victual license for Subway at 137 T-Ticket Highway.
I move approval of the common victual license at Subway.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposition? It's unanimous. And I'm going to issue an apology because I'm going through my packet in order, and the agenda is a little out of order compared to the packet. Before the annual license renewal, there was the agenda item for the Massachusetts Municipal Association reports from the Board of Selectmen. And again, this was a starting point. Several members of the board did attend the MMA meeting, as did Mr. Suso a few weeks back. And we had all talked about sharing some of the information that we had picked up during that meeting. And I wanted to give everyone the opportunity. Mr. Murphy was also at that meeting, but obviously he's not here this evening, so we'll probably do some more discussion about this, if not in 2 weeks, certainly in some future meetings as time goes on, because there was a lot of good information. I think we all have a little something different to share. And more importantly, there are some things coming out of that the board may want to ask Mr. Suso to undertake as action items over the coming year. So they may factor into some of the goals. Unless anyone has anything right now that you want to discuss? Okay. There was some great stuff on websites, I will say that I stumbled across. And that brings us to the individual selectmen's reports. Anyone have anything they want to update us with? Okay, hearing none. Any questions about Mr. Suso's report? Anything that you'd like to highlight, Mr. Suso?
Just two minor additions, Mr. Chairman, if I may. I just wanted to note that I was pleased to attend the most recent meeting of the Finance Committee this past Tuesday. They've been on a Tuesday evening meeting track as they work diligently on the FY15 budget, and happy to join Jennifer Petit when I'm able to at those meetings. And we did have a number of potential grant requests, as the board's aware, which we raised at that particular meeting for Finance Committee's thoughts and information, which we're happy to pass along. Also, I met earlier today with School Superintendent Gifford and the School Finance Director Jennifer Petit, and I joined them for the latest meeting in the series of meetings that we've been holding, and we'll meet again early in the month of March. Again, we continue to work to close the perceived gap in issues for FY15 in the budget. We're making excellent progress, and I think that's been reported on. My understanding is there's a school committee meeting tomorrow evening, and there'll be a presentation from Superintendent Gifford, which summarizes the progress we've made in closing that gap and the perception that there is no need for an override at this time. While that energy can be harnessed for future need, and it's excellent that so many people have stepped forward in regard to that. We have had, as the board here is fully aware, considerable progress made in terms of additional local aid from the Commonwealth, which we were guardedly optimistic would be forthcoming, and that does look like that is the case. Certainly that is in the governor's budget, and the House budget has been represented as being there being an intention to have even additional local aid. So we feel we've made great progress, and again, that the need for an override at this time is not there. We'll continue our discussions both with Superintendent Gifford directly, but also with the Finance Committee as they continue their work in that area. And I believe they're taking up most directly the school budget in the month of March. Again, plenty of time yet between now and the April town meeting, and I'm delighted with the progress and happy to report that back to the board, and our roll up the sleeves work will continue. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes?
I didn't think of this during the right time, but I wanted to comment, if I could, on the wastewater conference last Thursday. The Cape Cod Commission actually put it together, but it was sponsored by the EPA and the DEP, and there were people there. There were almost 300 people at this conference, and it was a day that snow was predicted. It was Thursday, but everybody seemed to manage to get there on time. Nobody had a problem getting there. And there were, after the initial speakers, there were 4 breakout sessions. So every single person in the group attended a breakout session. We were all assigned to about 6 different rooms in the hotel, and then the people who were leading those breakout sessions traveled, so that the members didn't have to travel, but the presenters traveled, which made it pretty easy, and it worked out really well. It was a summary of all the stakeholders' meetings that had been taking place around the Cape, and what the next step is going to be, moving those stakeholders' meetings into some more action-based sort of meetings. But there was one speaker at the end who I thought, who really kind of summed up this whole idea of how you take a major project like cleaning up nitrogen or wastewater. And what he said was that vision without action is a dream, and action without vision is a nightmare. And I thought that is so true, because if you really don't have a plan, then, and you just go off and do something, then it ends up sometimes like a nightmare. So I thought those were kind of words of great wisdom in terms for us too. When we want to get things done, we have to realize that there is a planning phase to some of these things, and we need to take the time to do the planning. But there will be further conferences like this, but it was very encouraging that on a bad weather day that many people came out to Hyannis to attend this conference. So this whole thing is moving forward, I think, in a very positive way. And of course, Falmouth and Chatham are the lead communities on the Cape in terms of wastewater, and there's no question about that. And Becky went too. I'm told there were quite a few people there from Falmouth.
There were.
And Andrew, your son, was there as a member of the commission. And yeah, there were a lot of people there, a lot of the commission members, the commission staff, and people from all over, not just from Falmouth, but from the state. There was great participation from the state, because as we know from our wastewater plan, our plan did not meet the state regulations. And so we had to very forcefully convince the state that they needed to consider adaptive management and make that a basic premise of their plan. And Ken Kimmel was their commissioner. And there were a couple other people from the EPA who were there, that they've now recognized that this isn't like a one-size-fits-all. And they have to look at the whole concept of adaptive management. Otherwise, we'll never get to where we need to go. So it was encouraging, I think.
One piece of correspondence that I do want to make note of, Mr. Suso actually received a letter from Jude Wilbur, who was previously a member of the Coastal Resources Working Group. And he actually requested time during town meeting, but Mr. Suso, neither Mr. Suso nor myself or this board have any authority to give time during town meeting. And most, in particular, there's no article relating to Mr. Wilbur's request, which is to present the findings from the reports that the working group had created. But Mr. Wilbur does present an interesting question here as to the status of the reports. And certainly, we had a workshop a few years back. It was a coastal workshop where we brought together the Conservation Commission, and I do believe that the Coastal Resources Working Group was involved, and the Beach Committee and a few other water-related groups, and there was some discussion about how to proceed. And certainly in recent years, we've had a number of storms which have caused damage to the infrastructure along the coastline, and it may be worthwhile to sort of resurrect this, if you will, and try to extract some useful information from these, and perhaps, again, we were just talking about goals for the town manager, that maybe in the coming year, we want to start working on setting forth a plan here. I'll work with Mr. Suso and Mr. Jones regarding agendas, but maybe we could have Mr. Wilbur or members of the working group come back and highlight some parts of the reports, and perhaps we can move on these. So.
A suggestion, he might forward that to the moderator, and maybe the moderator might give him time to speak.
He actually, Mr. Suso did forward it to the moderator,
Oh, he
but
did.
it was noted again that there's no article in town meeting relating to this, so there's not really an opportunity, as there would be, for example, if someone was asking for funds to do something like this.
Or if the committee still existed, it could be under the article of reports from committees. But
Exactly.
since the
Yeah,
committee
but
no
the
longer
committee
exists,
doesn't exist.
it's not, doesn't
Exactly.
follow that purview. We also had a letter from the Veterans Council asking for some time on our agenda.
That's right, too.
And I would think it'd be appropriate for us to respond and try to schedule them on February 24th. Just, they've asked for time. I think it's appropriate for
Do
us to
they
do.
have a specific issue they want to discuss,
The
or
request
just
was
like a report, or?
to see if the board would come up with a policy supporting the privacy needs of the veterans in the assignment of their location for the veterans agent.
We could certainly hear them.
Well, it's really not our issue. I mean, we should be very careful, because that's a town manager's, so, I don't know, I think, not that I wouldn't want to hear an update from them, but I certainly wouldn't want to get embroiled in any
And it's also
discussion about, maybe they could send us something in writing about what they might like to talk to us about in terms of that. Because I think we respect the privacy of people. I mean, we respect the privacy of people who come into town hall now.
And I think
So,
that's what we can
I mean, that's what we do.
We'll discuss that, but I think that's exactly what we say in our statement. But I think to give them a chance to express their point of view and give us a chance to say, this is, how we support our town manager in this.
I don't know. Maybe
Well,
you
we'll-
want to talk to the town
we'll
manager first.
continue to
before
work
you-
on the
yeah.
agenda and-
I know,
and,
that's a really difficult issue, and
All right.
I know when I worked in Plymouth, the Veterans Office was in Town Hall, and they had all the respect and all the privacy. There was never an issue. They came in frequently every day, and sometimes if the veterans agent wasn't there, I took over sometimes and helped them out if they had issues, if there was no one in the office. Anyway, I just don't want to create a division among
Understood.
the government, in a sense, whatever you want to call it. But I think we should carefully consider their request.
Okay. All right,
No,
that brings us to the end of the agenda.
I move to adjourn.
Second?
Motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.
Nestled in a classic New England setting amid 200-year-old elm trees and charming colonial homes, stately sea captains' homes, and charming Cape Cod salt boxes, Shoreway Acres is a graceful blend of Cape Cod's past and present. Shoreway Acres, proud sponsor of Falmouth Community Television.